I know another Catherine is.
She's right there.
Yeah. Everybody spells their name differently. Does it drive you crazy? All the different Catherines, and then there's Kathleen. So I'm sure you get called Kathleen all the time.
I think I tried to avoid the nickname Kathy because my Aunt Kathy used to be called Chatty Kathy a lot. So
oh,
I like Catherine.
Yeah. Yes, the younger people don't remember Chatty Cathy now, at least. So.
My grandma, I think, still has her doll, and she showed me, and I was like, "Oh, I understand that."
Well, I wonder if next time we meet that we'll be able to meet 6 feet apart. Do you think? Is that a possibility?
I think we're getting closer. Definitely.
Does the red allow that? When we go from purple to red? Yeah, I'm not
sure.
That would be nice.
It would. It really would be nice to be back in the chambers again.
Mm-hmm. I like seeing people, the real thing. It's Eric? Yes. Oh, he's wearing a mask to protect us all.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
How is everybody?
Good.
Eric's got his mask on.
Yeah, he must be in a room with other people.
Exactly.
Are you ready?
How are you feeling, Catherine? Are you feeling all right?
Me. Oh, I thought you were talking to Catherine Gualtieri. Yes. Yeah, I've still got a headache. I had to kind of sit out today, if that's all right.
Yeah. Okay.
Is it from the vaccine, you mean? Or
no? I'm just sort of staying separate from everyone out of an abundance of caution. But yeah, okay. I'm starting to feel a little better. Thank you.
Oh.
I don't see Catherine Gualtieri.
I think she wasn't she planning on joining us? Oh, well.
I've got 4:00 on the dot. Marty, should we just wait a couple minutes for her?
She did indicate that she would be in attendance.
Okay, let's just give her a minute. Did everybody, I'll just ask the meantime, did everyone have a chance to go over and see the project? Actually, it would be just you, Carol. Did you have a chance to go by the property?
I couldn't because I live too close to it. Are you talking about the Mission and First?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Jordan and I live too close to it.
Okay, so it'll be good to have Catherine Gualtieri in the discussion because there will be just 3 remaining board members.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's just see if she shows up here in just a minute, and then we'll get started right away.
However, I have seen it many times. I drive by it all the time, but
but you don't have an opinion that you can't speak about.
That's right. I have no opinion.
Okay.
For once.
Oh, come on. There's somebody that Marnie, could you introduce us to Angie? I don't recognize you. Forgive me.
Oh, she's our applicant. Her name is Angie Ferris. I think you're on mute, Angie.
Excuse me. Thank you. All right. Pleasure.
Hi. Yes, I'm an applicant.
My apologies. I was looking at the building and not reading all the fine print on your first and last name.
No worries.
Well, why don't we do this? Marnie, why don't we get started? I'll call this meeting of the Historic Resources Board for March 15th, 2021 to order. Meeting, missing letter. Hold on just one sec. If there is anyone wishing to address the board on matters not on the agenda, I'm looking around the screen, but within the jurisdiction, may do so now if they're calling remotely. We'll give them a moment there for that.
Excuse me, Chair Hood, you do need to call roll call.
Oh, yes. Okay. Will you please call the roll?
Yes. Board Member Croman?
Present.
Board Member Dyer? You're muted, Eric. Thank you.
Present.
Board Member Galtieri? She hasn't logged on yet. Board Member Hall?
Present.
Chair Hood, thank you.
Present. Very good. We'll pause here for just a moment to see if there's anyone watching remotely wants to bring anything before the board not on the agenda. And hopefully we'll see Catherine here momentarily. Hearing nothing from the outer stratosphere there, why don't we move into a review of the minutes of the meeting of January 25th. Has everyone had a chance to take a look at those minutes? If not, admit to it now. No? No discussion? Any questions? Can I hear a motion for approval of the minutes of January 25th, please?
I move to approve the minutes of January 25th.
Second.
Okay, the moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Dissenting? None. Motion passed. We've adopted the meeting minutes of January 25th, 2021. Second item on the consent agenda is DS 21-057, Torrey's 3 Southeast of 1st, consideration of a design study, amending a previously approved design study application for modifications to a historic property located at Torrey's 3 Southeast of 1st, single-family residential. Marnie or Catherine, do you have anything you want to inform us with on that?
Hi, Thomas. This is Evan Court. This was my project.
Hi, Evan.
It's on the consent agenda. I have no presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions of the board.
Any questions from board members for Evan?
I have I don't know if I need to pull it, but I do have a couple questions.
Go ahead.
You do need to pull that, for.
Yeah, why don't we pull the item quickly?
Want to pull that? All right. Eric, what is the protocol? HRB, once an item is pulled, does it go to the end of the agenda?
No, I think well, you tell me. I'll let Margie and Marnie or Brandon answer that, but I think you can talk about it immediately, can't you?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, it should be the item that we talk about now. And also, Mr. Chair, if I could just add, I just got a message from IT. I guess we're having difficulty streaming this meeting to Novus through the Novus platform, but it will be available via YouTube. So I just wanted to make that announcement.
Good. Thank you, Brandon.
You're welcome.
Eric, would you like to pose your questions for this DS 21057?
Sure, and I see Sam is on the
Here we go.
chat as well. So I guess my general question is, there was no way to get the fire sprinklers in the walls. I know sometimes you can have, in historic houses that I've worked on, we've been able to have wall-mounted fire sprinklers to avoid going to the ceiling. And then if it has to go in the ceiling, do we need the full 7 1/4 space that a 2x8 would require? So those are my questions. And I would say in general, I'm not saying it's totally inappropriate for this one, but in general, I would be reluctant to add to the thickness of a fascia of a flat roof building that's historic. The roof doesn't seem to be as prominent or important character defining issue in this building as others, but in general, I'd be hesitant to do that. But I'll let, I guess the question would be, is there any way to reduce the thickness of the fascia with the 2x8s or?
Sam, can you help us with that?
Happy to field that. So first, Eric, you're asking about other means of sprinklering this. So we do have our contractor on board, and we do have our fire sprinkler installer standing by. So fortunately, we've been able to kind of consult with those two people to, explore any and all options. Because these walls are solid brick, these extra walls are solid brick, there really wasn't an opportunity to come in through the walls. We would have to probably surface mount pipes on the exterior of the walls, which I think would kind of detract from the historic brick home. We talked with our structural engineer as well, and unfortunately the existing exposed ceiling beams are already probably a little too overspanned to kind of come in and drill through them. So what we'd be left with is really having to have exposed fire sprinklers throughout the underside of the finished ceiling, which we just feel is, really unattractive. And it would be kind of unfortunate if we had to go that route with this, nice, beautiful interior finished home. So it really seemed like furring up the roofing was our really only viable option. The difference of the 2x6 versus the 2x8 raised roof, I did talk to the structural engineer and the contractor about that, and the sprinkler installer, and it sounded like the 2x8 was going to give them the room that they needed to properly install this, plus some recessed can lighting as well. And the engineer also felt more comfortable with the 2x8 so versus the 2x6 spanning this distance.
Okay. And it's been confirmed, is it the length of demolition of walls that is predicating sprinklers?
That's it. Yeah, unfortunately, we have some competing things where we would have preferred to leave the roof alone, but we are over that 50% linear foot modification. So that did trigger fire sprinklers throughout, unfortunately.
Eric, what are your follow-up thoughts to what we've just heard from Sam?
No, I think those are decent justifications. I guess I just, maybe as a thought to staff in the future, I'm just concerned that, fascias and flat roofs are character defining elements of some of these older modern houses. And so we have to be careful about changing the proportions of all that. But I think in this case, it doesn't hinder it in a significant way. I just wanted to understand why, all the reasoning for it, or all the other options were looked at.
Sam, when I'm looking at your elevation, it appears that the existing 2x8 fascia and the one up above it, obviously there's probably some slight overlap of the two. So your total height is about 15 inches?
That's correct. To be about 15. So, to help at least try and break up the appearance of the fascia, that's why we've kind of opted for the staggered board detail rather than just doing one really flat, broad fascia, which I think would, detract more from the architecture from the house. Definitely. Yeah, as you can see, a little overlap. And of course, we're at the HRB level now, and then we'll coordinate this detail with our structural engineer as well for our actual hardware attachment. So our fascia board will overlap just ever so slightly. And then we'll probably have some blocking behind it to actually attach our new fascia board to that. And we're trying to design this also in such a way where we're really, doing minimal impact to the existing roof decking and fascia board. So I know, one of the interior standards is, being able to remove this work in the future without, negatively impacting the existing historic home. So we try to also be mindful of that when designing this.
Yeah. We usually don't get insides of buildings, but obviously here it impacts the outside. Is the structural engineer then assuming that this new 2x8 framing on top, is it actually acting as structural, or is it just adding to the dead load, hence the depth?
It's adding to the dead load. This will not provide structural shear or anything like that. That will still be handled by the existing 2x wood decking and exposed ceiling beams.
Is it then, if it's just dead load, he's not using it for structure, going any less than 7 1/4 is not feasible, even with if you use closed cell foam to get R30, 5.5 inches?
Like I said, it was a combination of talking with the contractor and the engineer. Both seem to prefer the 2x8, the contractor for having a little bit more room in the cavity to install the fire sprinklers. And this is also in conjunction with talking with the fire sprinkler installer at, 2x6, so 5.5 inch effective depth. It starts to get a little tight to work into that space and accommodate everything that the sprinkler installer needs.
And I imagine, do you have any recessed lights in this as well?
We do. I will say that really what's driving this is the fire sprinklers. We could have opted for like a flatter kind of what you call like a pancake light, for lack of a better term, that wouldn't have it. So it's really being driven largely by the fire sprinkler system. Yeah,
I can see that. Yeah, if you try to squeeze it to 5.5, you're going to run into problems. It can be done, but it's really tight.
It's tight, and my concern too is, okay, you know, it sounds maybe more favorable to propose 2x6, but then I didn't want to get you into a situation during construction where all of a sudden, you know, we ask ourselves or say, oh, you know, 2x8 would be a lot better, and then find ourselves having to come back and ask for another couple of inches.
Yeah, understood.
So we know 2x8 can work. 2x6 is going to be a real challenge, so we wanted to ask for the 2x8 this afternoon.
I'll return this just momentarily back to Eric before I ask the rest of the board. Eric, are you satisfied with the efforts that he's gone here, given the circumstances?
Yeah, I just wanted to understand it fully, and again, bring up that point just to make a point.
All right. Jordan or Carol, do you have any questions for Mr. Pitnick?
No. Were there some other issues like the fence, leaving the fence and things like that that we discussed last time? I guess we don't need to go through those again, huh?
I don't believe so, unless you have any further questions or comments.
Yeah, I think it was settled. No, that's fine.
Okay. I just have one question, Sam, for you. That elevation, west elevation, how are you handling the vertical siding when it hits that slope roof? Is that's just edge metal, so it's real clean?
The vertical siding that you see in the distance there?
No, the vertical siding in the garage on this west elevation.
Oh, yeah, just some edge metal flashing around the perimeter.
Okay, so it's real clean.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was the only question. That covers the 2 points I think that we need to bring up. Any other comments or questions from board members? If not, I'll ask for a motion. Don't all speak at once.
Okay, I'll make a motion that the proposed changes and revisions are could be determined to be. Sorry, I'm looking for that motion in the project manual or the packet here. I'll just do it simply. Just make a motion that the changes are consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards.
For DS 21057.
For DS 21057.
Okay. Any comments on the motion? Questions? Can I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Motion has been made and seconded. Any other further discussion by the applicant or by anyone from the board or staff? There's Catherine. Hello, Catherine. Catherine, since you just joined us, I want to keep this democratic. We just had a couple of short questions for Mr. Pitnick on his application 21-057 that we reviewed at the last board meeting. And it was a question about the fascia board that was raised by Eric. Have you had a chance to take a look at that consent item, and do you have any other questions spontaneously that relates to that Torres 3 Southeast of First project that we reviewed last month? Catherine, do you have your audio on?
I hope so.
There you are.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that. My computer clock said 3:15. I don't know why.
Daylight savings.
I think so.
Do you have any questions or comments about this item? We pulled it for just a short discussion for the DS 21057.
No.
Okay. Hearing none, we had a motion and a second for approved as submitted. Can I hear a vote, please? If you want to call the roll.
We should do a roll call vote.
Yes. Could you do the roll call for us?
Yes. Commissioner Croman?
Aye.
Board Member Dyer, sorry.
Yes.
Board Member Gualtieri?
I'll abstain since I came in late.
Okay. Board Member Hall?
Aye.
Board Member Hood, or Chair Hood.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion passes.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, Sam. Best of luck with your project.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our regular agenda item, orders of business. Item number 3 in front of you, DS 20-378. This is consideration of determination of consistency with the Secretary of Interior's standards for treatment of historic properties, the old school we're all aware of, for the construction of a 200 square foot detached garage oriented parallel to First Avenue, located in the front of the residence, listed on the historic inventory. Catherine, would you like to give us a staff report, please?
Before we begin, can we please have board members Hall and Crowman recuse themselves?
Yes.
Do we just leave the meeting? Is that what we do?
You should leave the meeting, yes.
Okay.
Or you can, go ahead and mute yourselves and not participate.
Yeah. It's like standing out in the hallway.
You're still able to listen. You just can't participate.
Okay.
Will do.
So we're giving you a grade school timeout. Go sit in the corner. Okay. Thank you, Margie, for keeping me on track here. Catherine, tell us about this project, please.
Mr. Chair, sorry if I could just interject one more time. I do think that the members who are recusing themselves should turn off their cameras, though, so that there's no facial expressions or anything like that. That's a full recusal that way.
Good point.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair Hood and members of the board. So the project site is a 12,000 square foot lot located at the southwest corner of Mission and First. It is developed with the historic Forest Hill School building, which is a craftsman style building constructed in 1921. It is historically significant under criteria number 1 in the area of history as one of the longest lived private schools in Carmel. It was in operation from 1921 to 1964 when it was converted into a residence. In 2013, the Historic Resources Board issued a determination of consistency with the Secretary of the Interior standards for the replacement of the tar and gravel roof with composition shingles, the removal and replacement of the existing masonry chimney to match existing, the repair and replacement as needed of wood windows and doors, and then the replacement of the rear veranda with a new permeable paver veranda. In 2019, the Community Planning and Building Director and staff approved a design study for the in-kind replacement of all wood windows on the property, with new wood windows in the same dimension and style and in the existing locations. Additionally, the applicant proposed to add 250 square feet to the existing 932 square foot paver veranda, and then to change the material from pavers to a wood deck veranda at the rear of the property in the same style and at the same height, and that was approved. And then on September 18th, 2019, the Historic Resources Board issued a determination of consistency with the Secretary of the Interior standards for the replacement of portions of the deteriorated siding, the repainting of the siding, of the stucco siding, the textured stucco siding to a gray color, and then repainting the building, painting it off-white, the trim off-white, and the doors and windows black. So that's sort of the background of the permitting history on this project. The existing proposal is for a new detached garage, a 200 square foot garage, 10 by 20, located in the front setback, oriented parallel to First Avenue in the front 15 feet of the property. The applicant is also proposing to remove 2,444 square feet of site coverage from the property. And then the applicant is also proposing a new curved permeable paver driveway facing First Avenue. The existing parking on the site is in that parking pad where the new garage is proposed to be located. The parking pad is about 13 feet by 40 feet and is oriented just like the garage is proposed to be parallel to First Avenue. Let's see. So the detached garage will be 10 feet 8 in height. with a gabled roof clad with composition shingles. 2 divided lightwood windows are proposed on the north and south sides of the garage, which will be dual pane with simulated vertical divided lights. The garage door will be wood and sectional with glass lights at the top. The siding of the garage will be smooth stucco to differentiate it from the textured stucco of the historic residence, and a sample was on site for you to view today. And then the stucco will match the color of the residence. And a phase 2 historic assessment was prepared by a qualified professional in historic preservation, Seth Bergstein. And he found the proposal to be consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards. Seth Bergstein evaluated 2 proposals for the garage, one oriented perpendicular to the residence or to the street, and the other oriented parallel. Let's see. The Secretary of the Interior standards, standard 9, and then standard 10 as well, will be the criteria you'll review this with. Standard 9 states that new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, and spatial relationships that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and will be compatible with the historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment. So that's number 9. And then 10 is that new additions and adjacent related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. So Mr. Bergstein's report found both proposals to be consistent with the Secretary's standards. However, the planning director and staff essentially wanted to ensure that the garage would be most compatible with the surrounding neighborhood and the integrity of the historic resource. So staff and the director required the applicant to revise, to make several revisions, including installing a pitched roof rather than a flat roof, shifting the rotated garage to the east, and decreasing the width of the garage from 12 feet to 10 feet. In regard to standards 9 and 10, Mr. Bergstein's report finds both a perpendicular and a parallel orientation for the garage consistent with the standards, since the garage will not be connected to the historic resource. Let's see, and will not remove any historic fabric. Mr. Bergstein states that the garage could be removed in the future and the site returned to its present condition. And then the phase 2 report states that the roof line of the garage is lower than the main residence, allowing the garage to appear to be subordinate. So staff supports the parallel garage orientation as currently proposed, because it's spaced 10 feet away from the main residence, while a perpendicular garage only provides about 2 feet 5 inches to the front, and the eaves could be an issue. The parallel garage orientation is located in the same footprint as the existing parking pad, so that would preserve the existing spatial relationship with the existing parking to the house. Finally, while a parallel orientation obscures a greater amount of the south front elevation, the garage has been shifted to the east to allow a good view of the windows on the west side, the character-defining windows on the main historic residence, which was also one of Seth Bergstein's concerns regarding a parallel proposal for the garage. So as proposed, staff supports the garage's orientation. Mr. Bergstein's report finds that a flat roof, regarding a pitched roof versus a flat roof, Mr. Bergstein's report finds that a flat roof is consistent with standard 9, as it proposes a simplified design which allows it to read as a secondary addition to the site and achieves strong differentiation from the main house, which has gable roofs. However, staff is concerned that the flat roof clashes with the architectural style of the main residence, and so staff requested a pitched roof. The applicant has proposed a 5 and 12 pitch on the roof to differentiate it from the 4 and 12 pitch on the historic residence. And the barge boards on the front are simplified. They're just straight and to differentiate them from the decorative serpentine barge boards on the front of the historic residence. Staff spoke on the phone with Seth Bergstein and sent him the plans, which he reviewed. So he's reviewed these revisions and stated that while the proposed gable roof at 8 feet 10 is 4 inches taller than the flat roof, because it's differentiated, he agreed that the pitch was differentiated sufficiently in the barge boards. Mr. Bergstein stated that the revisions uphold his report's findings, that the garage's scale and massing are in proportion to the main residence. So he did not find that an addendum to the Phase 2 report would be necessary. So staff supports the proposed pitch roof design for the garage and finds that the revised design is consistent with standard number 9. In regard to the finish details, a smooth stucco finish is proposed for the siding to differentiate it, as previously mentioned, from the textured stucco of the historic residence. The color of the stucco will be Kellymore Gettysburg Gray to match the color of the existing residence. Per the Phase 2 report's recommendations, the applicant revised the garage door's upper windows, as seen on the slide, to be solid pane. They originally had the same pattern as the existing historic residence. Let's see. So that now complies with Mr. Bergstein's report's recommendations. Windows on the south side of the garage will have, so this is one facing the street, they'll have a 5/8 contemporary square muntin, whereas the residence's windows on the historic residence have a 7/8 inch putty profile, so they are differentiated. The doors and windows on the garage will be painted black, and the trim around the windows will be painted off-white to match the existing residence. So Mr. Bergstein's Phase 2 report found these finished materials consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards. In regard to the driveway and the non-conforming site coverage on the property, the applicant's proposing to propose a 12-foot wide curved permeable paver driveway to provide access to the new garage off of First Avenue. However, this property site coverage is non-conforming. The applicant is proposing to remove all of the previously installed. There was some unpermitted site coverage installed. They're proposing to remove all of it. However, the driveway pushes the property over the allowed site coverage and would not provide enough site coverage to install the driveway as proposed. Alternatively, well, basically, if the applicant wishes to install a driveway, staff recommends that the newly built 1,182 square foot rear wood deck veranda be reduced. The existing rear veranda was approved to be replaced with permeable pavers in 2013, and then, as I stated before, it was approved by staff to be increased in size by 250 square feet, and then the material changed to wood. The Forest Hill School DPR form states that the rear south elevation consists of a ribbon band of large outward opening French doors directly accessing the terrace playground for children. These French doors open onto a stepped terrace accessed by full width open concrete steps. So in staff's opinion, the reduction of the rear veranda would not negatively impact the character of the residence, provided that it maintains at least its original 932 square feet size. So this has been included as recommended condition of approval number 1. And so staff recommends that the Historic Resources Board adopt a resolution issuing a determination of consistency with the Secretary of the Interior standards for the construction of a 200 square foot detached garage oriented parallel to First Avenue, located in front of a historic residence at the southwest corner of Mission and First. And that concludes my presentation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Catherine at this point, board members? None. Thank you, Catherine. I have just a couple of questions for you before we hear from the applicant. Was there discussion about possible siting of the garage in another location other than the southeast corner? I mean, was there any discussion relative to a garage being placed in the northeast corner, which is a level area, or almost level area?
The northeast corner. So the municipal code essentially, I think it states that detached garages are not permitted in the corner side, at the corner of two streets, basically because of line of sight safety issues. It may be that we may be able to see if a variance might apply, but it is an adopted portion of the code, so we'll have to look more into that and see if that might be a possibility. But that's the reason it was not proposed there. Okay,
and then the second question: when it was changed from a flat roof to a gable roof, this was a recommendation, suggestion from staff, or something that the owner initiated?
It was a recommendation from staff. I think they had proposed a flat roof first as their first proposal.
And as I understand it from your report, Seth Bergstein found the building to be consistent, whether it had a flat roof or a slope roof, both were acceptable?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, very good. That's all the questions I have. Board members, have anything come to mind the last 45 seconds? If not, I'd like to turn this over to, yes, Eric.
I just had one question for Catherine, because I think you said, I just want to confirm, how was it proposed that the windows would be differentiated from that main house?
On the garage door?
On the garage, because there's the garage door, and then there's the garage, other side of the garage too, right?
Sure. So starting with the garage door, and then I'll move to the sides. The Seth Bergstein's report requested that the muntins be removed and that they just be solid, undivided light windows to differentiate it. So that would be the front of the garage. And I think when he made that recommendation, he was initially looking at the garage as the garage door is facing front, facing the street. So that was his first recommendation, and then that's what the applicant has proposed here. The divided lights were removed, and then on the side, let's see, they're a different style. They are, so the garage will have 5/8" contemporary square muntins, which I think, let's see, are shown here, versus the residence, which has the putty profile. They're like angled. Let's see, does it show the profile? Let me see if I can find it. It does show it. So here, so you can see they're squared off muntins. They are the simulated divided light dual pane windows. So they have different dimensions, but a similar appearance.
Okay, and Seth basically thought that met the standard?
Yeah, Seth didn't, I spoke with him on the phone, we looked at it. He didn't really mention the windows. He said that they're differentiated. He acknowledged that they were differentiated, and he didn't indicate that it would be an issue.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from board before we open this up to our applicant? Hearing none, please step forward to the microphone. Angie, it's very nice to have you here. Please just identify yourself for the record, and go right ahead.
Sure. My name is Angie Ferris. I'm with Hastings Construction. I'm the designer here. Catherine's done a very good job of basically telling you guys what we're doing here. So we originally had a flat style roof with this. We did want to have it perpendicular or parallel. It seems to me that the parallel direction seems to be the best. So we're happy to oblige to that. We've made multiple revisions to this to kind of make it work inside the Secretary of Standards, inside the Secretary of the Interior standards, as well as the planning director's wants as well. So we've tried to locate it multiple times on the property. This does seem to be the best place to put it. It doesn't affect any major trees. Again, with the site coverage issue, if we were to put it towards the rear, having a long driveway would have been an issue. Plus, there is a lot of trees on this property, so that was pretty much the main reason for keeping it on the parking pad, because none really exists there. There is one that's kind of larger to the rear of it, but we're going to make sure that we're going to stay 6 feet away from it. Again, with the parking pad, we're going to make the rest of it be dirt. I don't believe that we have a bunch of DG and stuff in front of the garage right now, so we'll make sure that we put that back to natural landscaping, as well as 50% of the right-of-way. And anything left that's not part of the paver driveway would be returned back to soil, natural soil, So we're going to make sure that all of the non-conforming site coverage issues will be removed for this project. Other than that, if you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer any ones that you guys have at this time.
Okay. Thank you very much. Board members, any questions for applicant? Eric, do you have any comments? Catherine?
Not at this point.
I guess based on the thought of a variance might, that the board might be willing to look at that, and I don't know about the planning commission or whether that's even something that can be done. The staff still has to research that, but is that something that your clients would be open to or to look into, the other location on the corner?
Yes, they are. The biggest thing for my clients is that they do want a garage that's covered. So they want to try and make this as, compliant with what your guys' wishes are, as well as giving them what they would like as well. If the variance is something that you guys want to explore, we're happy to do that. Obviously, cost would be something I would need to know, because that's going to have a deciding factor in this. But they would be willing to move it if that is something that you guys think is a possibility.
Well, the criteria, Eric, go ahead, Eric.
Oh, I was just going to say, well, the advantage to your clients would be obviously accessibility. Right now, it's going to be very tight getting into that garage from where it's oriented. So by having it directly off the street like this, that would be the advantage, I would think, in terms of, the way you would look at it. But
yeah, we've actually proposed, I think, 4 or 5 different places for this garage. We did originally have it on that corner in one of the proposals, but the municipal code did come up about it not being able to be allowed on the corner. So we decided that we would move over to where the existing pad was. And the original orientation of having it perpendicular was because of that reasoning, because the garage or the driveway is a little tight getting in there. But as far as I can tell, as long as we can keep, that 12-foot radius, I think it would be okay for the car to get in there. I think we have enough clearance. I mean, it is going to be a little tight, but, I think it's still going to be a functioning garage for the client with this orientation. And again, too, there was another issue that had come up with that corner that I just thought of right now. There was something that was brought up by just about the view of it from, blocking part of the residence. I feel like the discussion was, if we were to put it on the corner, it would block a good percentage of the historic residents from people driving by the roads. So that was something else I think that was discussed, why we decided not to put it on that corner as well.
Okay. Eric, any further comment or question?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Catherine, any thoughts come to mind, questions? What do you think?
Well, if we're ready to have a discussion, are you going to close the?
Yeah, I'm closing the public hearing if there's no more questions for Angie based on Eric's comment. I'll close the public hearing and return it back to the board.
Well, I'd like to start by saying that one of the most important historic preservation principles that I think our board always follows is to avoid making a decision that would significantly impact the public's view of a historic resource from the public street. And I can't think of a worse place to put a garage than 20 foot along First Avenue, whether it's perpendicular or parallel. If I had to choose between the two approaches, I would certainly not follow the one that puts it smack in front of the public's ability to see the school from the street. That's our whole purpose in historic preservation, and it's been that way for a long time. I had the sense after reading Seth Bergstein's report that he favored the perpendicular because it was not so visible from the street. It was small, it had a flat roof, and he said that it didn't really confuse the viewer as to where it belonged or what it was. And I think the pitched roof for the garage mimics the historic building. I don't think that's good. I think that's confusing. I think that reducing the site coverage is an issue that if staff approved a very large veranda, it seems odd for us to require them to now take it off so they can have a garage. I think the owners deserve a garage. They've put a lot of effort and money into fixing this as a adaptive reuse as a residence, which is what we would all support. And to me, perhaps a waiver could be looked into as to not only site coverage, but also the placement of the garage. I'd like to hear more about what the board thinks on that. To me, placing it in a parallel site directly in front of the school is completely opposed to what I think of as historic preservation principle number 1. So I would not be in favor of where it's being recommended.
Thank you, Catherine. There are just 3 of us participating because 2 fellow board members have to step aside because of proximity. So I'll make the next comments. Catherine, you and I always don't see eye to eye on things, but I would say in this case, I can repeat the thoughts that you just made. They should be fully entitled to obviously have a garage on this site. I really see it as our job to help them get across the line so they can get that garage. They deserve it. I would agree with you on the previous approval of the deck on the back. I mean, my math says they'd have to take 250 square feet off a 1-year-old deck because of site coverage for a driveway. If there is a means through the ordinance, either because it's a historic structure or just in terms of site coverage materials, I'd hate to see them have to go back and deconstruct something that was approved last year by staff just because of material in a driveway. It does sound as if they are prepared just to leave it as dirt. That's certainly their prerogative. I think it's a shame they'd have to go back and take off something they just constructed. I will also agree with you, placing the building parallel to the primary elevation, which I think while you can view the building from the northeast corner, I think its principal elevation is really right where that garage is, where it's open to the street. And it's also, that's the main entrance to the house along that side. Again, I want to see them get their garage, but I just questioned its location. It's actually not parallel to the building. It's just slightly off. And what I can imagine happening is when those 2 are constructed, your eye goes to the roof and the roof overhangs, and you'll see that they're really not parallel. They're just slightly out. I found that a little bit curious. I guess what I'm looking at here is it's an auxiliary structure with a garage door on it, and it's immediately adjacent to the main entrance to the side of the house. I think actually, despite their efforts, to me it detracts from the historic resource. It's right in front of the principal elevation. That was hence the reason I asked about if they did explore the northeast corner. When we were just on site, I saw a very moderate grade change of about a foot. I would, again, we just make a recommendation to the Planning Commission for any discussion on any kind of variance. I personally could support the idea of a recommendation that includes revisiting the site on the corner where they originally proposed it as a flat roof. Immediately adjacent on the east side of the building is a original flat roof element that the original design strongly recalled, but it differentiated slightly as a detached structure. Other issues aside, they've got the same proximity to an oak tree on the northeast corner as they do with this proposed design. Possibly a very soft exploration of the root area at that 6 feet line is merited to see if there actually are any root intrusions so that Sarah's comfortable. My last comment I'll make is I appreciate that they tried 3 or 4 different areas. Obviously, they're looking for an approval here. to move to the Planning Commission. I'm just not excited about placing this building parallel to the street that obscures a greater portion of the building. One last comment. If that exact same building was placed on the northeast corner, the grade is considerably lower there. You would actually see the top of the building and the windows where this design, it actually does obscure. This I would say is, despite their efforts, this is kind of the least favored, in my opinion, of the three proposed locations in the front that have been proposed so far. The last thing I'll say is, I appreciate the stucco, the colors, the materials, I'm fine with that. But the building almost has a sense of it's an anywhere in Carmel garage with a gabled roof. It looks so much like so many others that I don't really see a strong connection, compatibility with the existing structure. It looks like a garage that really almost could go anywhere aside from the stucco. And I mean that in a way of trying to foster the best site that serves the owner as well as satisfies all the ordinances. I would like to hear if there could be a more discussion or motion about consideration of a possible front yard variance for the placement of this structure, given the historic nature of the building, its principal location, and location on the site. Eric or Catherine, do you have any other further comments?
I guess I have some.
Go ahead.
So I agree. I think the owners should be able to have a garage for themselves after rehabilitating this pretty amazing school in such a, with such expense and dedication. I see only this location and the corner location as viable. The other side, I think, was very close to trees, had a very steep slope. I think it'd be very difficult to get a garage in that location.
Yeah.
So in terms of let me just address the proposal that's before us. I understand the resistance to, putting a structure directly in front of the resource. I would simply say that it is obviously subordinate to the resource. It's much smaller than, this is obviously a large lot and it's a large building. So that is, it's because of that, it's certainly very subordinate. I think I agree with staff in that the parallel is actually better for the resource when you're out there and you look at it in 3 dimensions. And if you saw a new structure of a garage being perpendicular and being placed that close to the resource itself, I think that is certainly a big negative. And I think as you see it out there, the parallel solution creates more independence and you're able to see between it and the historic resource in a clear way. So I think that's certainly a better solution. Now, as for the corner, I think that is, if you could find a way in the code to grant a variance, that is probably the preferable solution for the owners and for the historic resource itself, because normally it wouldn't be. Normally a corner would be just the wrong place because that's the most prominent viewing spot from the 2 streets of the resource. However, because, like Thomas mentioned, it's so much lower than the building that's there, and it would probably hide some things like the new electrical panel and things that are not so sightly. I think it's definitely something to explore, and I would be open to making a recommendation to planning that they grant that option. But as far as I see the existing resource, the existing proposal before us, I'm actually think I could support it because, again, I think it is separated enough from the building if you look at it in 3 dimensions, and it feels very subordinate because of the scale as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Well, to me, this would be like putting a building in front of the White House. I don't see why a building, whether it's subordinate and small and so forth, you are blocking the major view of this historic resource, which is one of a kind and very important to the history of Carmel. I would not support it being in the position that the staff is recommending.
Okay. What I'd like to do is open the public hearing again. There have been a wide range of comments here, and Angie, if I'd like to give you the opportunity to respond with either questions, comments, and just we're looking for the right path, and I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure. I mean, putting it on the northeast corner, I do agree with you guys, and it being low, that's a flatter area. It is kind of a space that looks like it would support a garage just naturally. Entrance to the home, there is an entrance right there off the side. That's a laundry room entrance. So that would be feasible. It would make sense to put it there. In terms of, whether it's perpendicular or parallel in the existing, location, we're willing to work with you guys on that. I will say that if we do the perpendicular, it does force us to raise it up a little bit, just because of the sloping of the lot and getting into the garage itself. So that's kind of the reason why the height changes a little bit. When it is perpendicular, it is more sunken down. We can keep it down at the pad level. So, I mean, if we were to go back to the flat roof, which sounds like you guys are pushing more towards liking that one, it actually would probably be a little bit lower than what's being shown now if we got rid of the gable. I don't know if that would be helpful in any way for your guys' decision making, but that's something that we can discuss and explore.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to support what the applicant is saying, and I think we should look into the corner it's obviously the most desirable site if we can get around the idea of the code, and I think a variance in this case would work very well. Who wouldn't want a garage next to the laundry room and the entrance to the building? I mean, it just makes a lot of sense instead of putting it right out on the street. I don't think there's any other one that's that way.
Would you agree when you view this building, the Mission Street side is not nearly as expressive of the principal elevation than the First Street side? Given it's a lot, the principal elevation is actually First Street.
Yes.
Would you agree with that? Eric, would you agree with that?
I would. Well, I agree because it's the way the grade is low to the site there would allow for a smaller flat roofed garage to fit in rather nicely. So I think it doesn't, even though I think that is an important elevation, the lower part of the elevation I think is not as significant, and again has some unsightly features to it.
Okay. Angie, thank you for your feedback. Is there anything you'd like to add before I close the public hearing and ask for motion?
No, nothing I'd like to add at this time.
Great. I really appreciate your candor. Thank you. I'm going to take this back to the board.
Sure. Can I speak to the variance just briefly, maybe to provide context on there? It seems like there was a desire for that. Thank you. So, staff, after the site visit and looking at this, we came back and looked at the variance findings. I do think that in this case, staff could most likely make a recommendation to the Planning Commission to support a variance. There's a certain set of findings that must be made. Things like special circumstances. In this case, we have a historic resource that certainly is a special circumstance. It's not a special privilege. People have garages all over town. The one that I would say we would probably want to check with our Public Works Department and our Police Department on is just the one where it won't be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare. I do think it's likely that being able to bench it in a little bit, having a flat roof, it probably won't be an issue, especially given the topography of the two streets above it. I don't think you'd be blocking sight lines down the street, but we would just want to verify that with our two partner departments here in the city. But I think it's a pretty supportable variance from a staff position. Obviously, we can't guarantee an approval by the Planning Commission, but it certainly would be something we would be happy to work with the applicant on to find a solution there.
Brandon, thank you for giving us a little bit greater detail about the necessary findings.
Sure.
What I'm understanding from you is, given its existence as a historic resource with a principal elevation on First, that there is possible consideration that the Planning Commission could consider for granting a front yard setback variance, provided that Public Works, safety. Of course, there's the one tree stump that would significantly improve visibility of a car backing out on that corner.
Correct.
Okay. And Mission Street, that is a it's a seldom traveled street, but obviously we've got to find out Public Works as well as Sarah Davis's opinion on this.
And I would just mention that I don't think it's the way it's positioned now with the garage on First that's not exactly a safe way to back out either.
No, it's not. It works great if you've got a little Fiat Panda. That's kind of a tight squeeze. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. If there are no other questions, if there are any follow-up questions for Mr. Swanson or Ms. Tyrone from the board, otherwise I'll hear a motion.
Well, how does this affect what has been presented as the resolution that was in the packet? I don't see any wording that talks in terms of the garage specifically, other than it's determined to be consistent. So how would we like to make a motion?
Well, here's a possibility. Is in as much as Mr. Bergstein indicated that it was consistent with the guidelines, and Marnie or Brennan, you can weigh in here. I could see that a motion could be crafted that the motion put forth is that it is inconsistent with the historic guidelines in as much as that it significantly obscures the principal elevation of the building from First Street, if you feel that one.
I have a question.
Yes.
Before we do that, could we could ask the applicant if they would be willing to continue the application and submit it to us, the revised scheme with the garage on the corner with the request for a variance. I'm assuming, I guess this is a question for staff, whether we would have to approve that. It would have to come to us first anyway, correct?
Correct. Yeah, that is certainly one of your options. You could continue this, request the applicant to do a revised site plan that shows the garage down there. That would give staff time to speak with Public Works and Safety and the arborist to see if that's a feasible solution. We could run it by Mr. Bergstein to get an addendum to his report, come back next month and present it to get a recommendation moving on to the Planning Commission.
Yeah, I think this is a very good solution. I hope with staff support and the rest of the other departments that I would recommend a continuance also. And I think it will benefit the applicant in the long run to have it in a different location. So I would move that we continue this and declare that this particular application was not consistent with the Secretary's standards.
Anything you want to add to the motion, Eric? The reason for
I guess I wouldn't support that motion. I would support a motion of continuance.
Okay, that's fine.
So
I think it's clear to the applicant's representative of what we're asking them to do. Should we open the public hearing and get their input on that?
I think we just first off, we had a motion and I heard no second. Okay. Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, you could, from parliamentary procedure perspective, you could take the original motion, and if Eric wanted to propose a friendly amendment to the motion to remove the determination of ineligibility and just leave it as a continuance point blank, that would be a friendly amendment. And if the maker of the motion was okay with that, then someone could second the friendly amendment.
I think Catherine.
Thank you. You took the words out of my mouth.
I think Catherine.
There you go. Eric.
Did you, Catherine?
Yeah, that's fine. I agree.
Okay, she amended the motion, then I'll give the second.
There you go.
Okay. Any other discussion? Questions? I'll call for a roll call, please.
Yes, Board Member Dyer,
Yes.
Board Member Gualtieri,
Yes.
and Chair Hood.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Very good. Angie, I hope you're clear on what our motion is here. We want to support you in what we think might be a different design. Brandon, thank you for stepping in about procedure and the suggestion about taking this back to Public Works. I think also having Sarah Davis involved in the conversation as to specific siting and considering possible maybe a little ground exploration hand dug will give her the confidence that I think the building could potentially fit on that corner Brandon variance. Very good.
Good.
Thank you very much, Angie.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you next month.
Definitely.
Go for it. Okay. Staff, do we have anything else that we want to cover? Any items not on the agenda or any new business?
Mr. Chair, if this is the point in the agenda for the director's report, I do have just a brief update for the board. I just want to let everyone know, you may or may not have noticed, and I spoke with board member Dyer today about this as well, but we've made some slight modifications to the resolutions coming out of the HRB, only in that it's more procedurally correct going from the HRB to the Planning Commission. The resolutions and the conditions prior were effectively conditions of approval like you would see on a land use entitlement. Conditions of approval are typically put on land use projects so that if you violate a condition of approval, you have a permit, some sort of permit or land use entitlement that can possibly be revoked. You can start the revocation process. In the case of the Historic Resources Board, what you're doing is you're making a determination that given a set of criteria, a set of conditions, and it's tricky to use the same words, but if certain conditions are met, then you can find a project to be consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards. So the way the resolution is going to be framed is that the HRB has found that based on the specific project that you reviewed on a certain date, and we put in there, by mentioning it, referencing it herein, it's actually an attachment. Based on that, the plans you actually saw today, and if certain conditions are met, like consider a certain fascia board color or something like that. If those conditions are met, then your determination is to approve it as consistent. And so that goes forward to the Planning Commission. So then in theory, if the Planning Commission, which they wouldn't likely do, didn't follow one of those recommended conditions, which they don't have to follow the conditions right now as it is, then it would be ripe for appeal, because then the determination would go away, because in the HRB's opinion and approval, you approved a determination based on certain criteria. So it's just, it may be a little bit confusing, but procedurally it was not correct to say that the HRB was putting on conditions of approval for a project, because this body doesn't actually approve any discretionary entitlements. So
Will that be
I can go into that more with people if they want, but I didn't want to try to make it too confusing.
It's only slightly confusing.
Okay.
The way I was just going to, so this conversation with Brandon, which was great, it brought up a couple more questions in my mind as I began to think about it. So what we had discussed was this, which we hadn't really talked about. I don't know if this is good practice, but the possibility or the power of the HRB to appeal a Planning Commission decision, which I guess we're entitled to do, which I guess I didn't fully realize before. And in these cases, they would, if they changed anything and they would have to, and we disagreed with it, we'd somehow have to know about it in time for the appeal period. So that was kind of my question to Brandon, whether we could be notified of any change to our recommendations by the Planning Commission when it happens, so that before the 10-day appeal period expires, we would be able to respond. And I guess my further question to that, as I thought about it, was, how does that actually work if we don't have a meeting? Can individuals of the HRB appeal it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, so you can, either as a member of the HRB or as just a citizen. So, and the thing that's interesting about this, I was talking to board member Dyer about earlier, is that in theory, even all the past resolutions that this body has adopted with what you were calling conditions of approval, because the Planning Commission is a discretionary decision body, they could have not accepted those conditions anyway and changed my example of the fascia color. They could have changed that anyway at their hearing, and you wouldn't have known then either. So they could have changed that because they have that discretionary power. And your conditions are not, they're not conditions of approval in the land use sense. So setting it up this way at least makes it clear what they are. And then when I was talking to board member Dyer earlier, I would like to set up some sort of mechanism where the HRB is made aware of when a decision is made on a project that had a recommended condition of approval from the HRB, so that you know the outcome of your recommendations.
That's good. We are advisory and making referrals, correct?
That's mostly correct. The code actually gives you ability to approve a determination of consistency. So you do approve that, but you do not approve any sort of land use entitlement or permits or anything like that. So that's what your approval is. And so for you to approve that, that's why you're saying, based on these conditions and these plans that we reviewed, that's why we're approving this.
Catherine?
The board does have the ability to designate historic resources listings to the inventory, though. And
That's
those
correct.
are not going to the Planning Commission.
That is correct.
Okay, so those, we still do that.
That's correct.
That doesn't change what you're saying.
No, not at all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to double down, based on the discussion we just had for this previous project, the discussion of a variance, that's determined by the Planning Commission. We are strictly advisory in that role.
We can grant, I think if it's well, I'll let Brandon respond to that, sorry.
No, go ahead, Eric.
I was just saying, I know, because I looked it up, we can grant a waiver of a parking requirement, which if it's listed on the register, not necessarily the inventory. I think that's one of the benefits of the register. But
Correct.
that doesn't, I don't think that has anything to do with.
That's right.
It just says you can have parking. You don't have to have parking on the site.
And I can, if you want me to, Chair Hood, let me just put something up on the screen right now, which will be helpful for you. And you can take a look at this in your own free time too. But this is, hopefully you can see that now. So this is section 2.74.020, the duties and powers of the Historic Resources Board. And this is sort of exactly what Catherine was talking about, where it gives you all these other powers. Most everything that the HRB does is advisory, advise the Planning Commission on the establishment of historic districts, advise the City Council on becoming certified local government for historic preservation. But there are things like here, approve or deny requests by owners to place on the Carmel Register. So there are some approving powers and there are some advising powers. So it's all listed right here. And the section that I was speaking to where we haven't been doing exactly right was here is B, to review and approve or deny or approve with conditions. So you're approving the determination of consistency. You're not approving any projects that can have conditions of approval on them.
Is there anything in future hearings of specific language you would like to hear in motions? So that's clear.
No, I don't think so. We'll work through that together. I tweaked you'll see in the language of the resolution that now therefore be it resolved. That's basically, so resolutions, I get too nerdy on all this stuff because I love all this stuff, but resolutions are essentially the written formal word, so let it be written, so let it be done of the HRB. So those are your words. Those are the words of, Chair Hood and Eric Dyer and Catherine and everybody here. Those are your words in perpetuity. And so when we're doing this, if there's something in a resolution, you want to get an extra recital in there, the whereas clauses. If there's something else you want to put in there to say, whereas we find that it would be better, but we can't require it, or some sort of recommendation, you would tell us that as staff, and then we would modify the resolution for you before it came back for signature. Those are your words. The resolution is for you to put your words in. This is the resolutions when we bring them to you are our recommendation of what the resolution should be. But we can tweak that, if it needs to be tweaked. There are some format things that have to be in there, but that now therefore be it resolved is sort of that's what, when you're making a motion, that's really what you're about to say is I would like to make a motion to, and then insert the words after now therefore be it resolved.
Everybody getting that?
Yeah.
So I assume then if there's an appeal possible by board members, individual board members, which solves the problem of having to get together and make votes as a board. I'm assuming would not be a fee involved. The individual board member wouldn't have to pay a appeal fee to appeal to the city council.
I don't know the answer to that right off the top of my head. Let me find out about that and get back to you. I know we do have an appeal fee, but I don't know how it works from one member of a body to another.
Because I guess what it comes down to, or what we'd be afraid of, is that by law, we have to determine these projects are consistent with the Secretary of Interior standards, and that's required for historic resources. So the danger is the Planning Commission would perhaps misunderstand, not being familiar with them as much, misunderstand some of the Secretary of Interior standards and how they would be applied. So that sort of puts the obligation back on staff a little bit. So if the Planning Commission did want to change recommendations or change anything, it could be we approve a project completely as it was, and the Planning Commission makes determinations based on other criteria. to change something,
Yeah.
that change affects, how
Yeah, you're correct, and that's
is an issue, right?
Yeah, that's the interesting thing earlier when you and I were speaking is that it could. I don't have any knowledge of any time it's happened in the past, but it could very well have happened in the past where this group approved a project, and when it got to the planning commission, not fully understanding how the Secretary of Interior standards work, said, you know what, we don't want a window here because of privacy issues, so let's just move it. And they moved it as part of their approval without any consideration. And, this body may have never known. I'm not saying that happened because I'm not aware of it, but, this shift in how we're calling the recommended conditions doesn't change that. They could have in the past as well changed your recommendation or your approval as well. So that's why I want to create that link between what comes out of this body and what's approved by the Planning Commission. So you all, as sort of our historical experts for the city, are aware of what's happened and can help be sort of like the watchdog to make sure what's supposed to happen happens.
Just 2 quick points. I'm assuming with all our I'm calling them referrals to the Planning Commission, they're always provided with a copy of, for example, Bergstein's report.
They should be.
They should be.
I've only been here 7 weeks now, so, but they should be, and they really should be going along with the HRB's recommendation.
Or at least the background that led us to our motion.
We had talked. I was just sorry.
Go ahead.
We have talked, I think, periodically over the years about having a joint meeting with the Planning Commission to discuss historic resource issues and things like the Secretary of Interior standards. Because I think some of us, especially members of the Planning Commission and Historic Resource Board, change, and sometimes people are not as up to date on the different factors by which each of those respective boards makes decisions. So in some way, since we work together, at some point, maybe it does make sense to have a little get together as a joint meeting and discuss the Secretary of Interior standards and how we make decisions. So anyway, that's a thought for future reference.
I'd like to add something else to that is we've just spent, 15, valuable minutes here talking about exactly what our responsibility is, how they carry forward the Planning Commission. To me, the whole context of all this discussion needs to be is some way to communicate to the public, to the applicant, when they make an application, just exactly what the process is. There are a lot of sort of side comments made. Oh, if it's historic, you're doomed. You don't want it to be historic. I've watched that for 40 years. But clear is basically we're upholding ordinances, but we're delivering a service. And then whatever we can do as individual board members in a hearing or in any communication that might be issued to the public, the Carmel process of Historic Review Board and Planning Commission, what the goals are and make it as crystal clear as possible. It could potentially save the applicants a lot of time and trouble that they understand what the process is, because it's a lot to digest to them. It's not just 2 times up at bat. We're just here to kind of knock things out of the sky. Is we can actually, and we've had instances in the last 4 or 5 years where I've had applicants or historians contact me afterwards to actually thank the board for making things really clear. I think that's really, really important.
Well, and Chair Hood, I think that's a wonderful point. One of the things that I've done on a couple of projects now, but that we're going to implement in the department on a more regular basis with the larger demo rebuilds and large full-scale remodels that would typically come to this body, is have what's called a development review committee early on in the process with just internal, so it's staff and the applicant. But it's an opportunity to sit early with a design, with an applicant and their designer and architect or whoever it may be, to talk about potential pitfalls, where they might want to think about design, code issues, things like that, design itself, with our design guidelines. And then it's an opportunity to talk about the process as well. Is this going to need to go to HRB? Is it going to have to go to Forest and Beach? So there's not surprises along the way. Having that early communication is something that I'm really a big proponent of and have been all throughout my career. So we're going to start doing that on a more regular basis as well.
That's a great idea. Well, I've been to several of those at the county level. You've got the department heads that are going to say, here are the rules of the road, here are the issues. Absolutely.
Yeah, that was my baby at the county too. So I want to do something similar to that here. I don't know. I think we can fold it into our 30-day review process and maybe make it a little bit less onerous. so it doesn't slow down the process. Because I think that's people's hesitation sometimes is that, is it going to slow down my process? So I want to figure out a way to make it a little more streamlined in the process of our 30-day review, but certainly make sure we communicate early on about it.
If they have the opportunity up front saying, we've got an idea, is this worth exploring, or what are the problems? It will actually save them time and expense, as opposed to blasting all the way through to a full application, going through the completeness review, and then getting continued. Every continuance is a minimum of 30, usually 60 days if they have to touch their drawings. There's where it gets really expensive.
It saves staff time and money too. It does.
And it costs the city money too to go through all those staff reports. That's true.
Yep. So that was my director's report. I just wanted to share a little bit what I'm doing right now with the resolutions and pre-review and things like that.
Good. That's really extremely helpful. Anything else in your report for us today?
That's it. Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. Any other comments, questions from anybody else on the board? I have one announcement to make.
I'll make mine just quickly.
What's that?
I just have one thing to mention. I'd spoken with Brandon about it today, is that I would like to encourage the board to take a look at the Wells Fargo Bank building by Olaf Staalstrand, which is built in 1965, which, what is that, 56 years old, and look at reviewing the existing DPR that's already been done on the property and consider placing it on the historic inventory. It's one of the really wonderful buildings, mid-century buildings in Carmel, and it's not on the inventory yet. So that's something to look at. It also would give respect to the designer Olaf Staalstrand, who's been an important part of the city as well.
Good idea.
So hopefully in the near future we can get that on an agenda.
Good. No, thank you, Eric. My announcement is this, and it came up rather fast. If all goes to plan and we get an appraisal, I will be moving my residence and office temporarily to Mid-Valley. I'm going to be purchasing a home in Tierra Grande. So as much as I love being on this board now, going on 5 years, it may be that this is my last meeting as chair. It really depends on close of escrow. Sadly, I'm on 5 boards, and I like this one the most.
Well, you deserve a good home.
Yeah, I'm going to have to give that up. So you'll be needing to find a new chair and a 5th board member. But it's really been a privilege to serve on this board with Catherine, with you, all your expertise, with Carol and now Jordan. You're new in the troop. With Lim Bamwazi's input, hometown tourists. I think we've both maybe learned some things from each other on different levels of perspective or understanding of historic structures, and it's just really a treat to be on this board. I feel very privileged.
You'll be missed, that's for sure, Thomas. You'll be missed.
Congratulations. I echo that. You will definitely be missed. Learn a lot from you every time we talk.
Well, I really sincerely enjoy it. If there aren't any other comments or questions, I'll close the meeting for today. All right. Carol?
Her microphone is off.
Carol's muted, yeah.
Oh, Carol, you're muted.
Just *6.
Mm-hmm. Oh, can't hear you, sorry.
Carol? Can't hear you. I think she's looking for unmute button. There you are.
There. Okay. I was doing it on my individual screen. It wasn't working. Are you going to be able to stay on as president of the Carmel Heritage Society?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Oh, yes.
Good.
Yes.
So you'll still be around.
And he's on the AIA board too, so he has to stay on that.
And on the AIA board and the Chamber of Commerce.
Right?
Good.
Yeah. Eric, you can decide at the board if you want to step back in. You've been a really good chair for years. You have the drill down. And with Brandon as backup, everything should go smoothly.
I guess, you're going to be seriously missed, Thomas. So, congratulations.
Yes, congratulations.
I'll be paying a bank instead of paying a landlord. I'm pretty excited about it.
Good.
All right. Catherine, thank you for your presentation today. I hope you feel better soon.
Thank you. I will.
All right. Brandon, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you. And, we've only worked together a little bit, but I am very sad to see you go as well. I can tell it would have been fun to work with you for many years, but good luck.
Well, I'm sure our paths will cross again. And Margie, thank you for keeping me on track today.
You're welcome.
And Marnie's just left a calla lily there. I hope that's not an ominous sign.
I think that's actually her favorite flower. I heard her say one time.
There she is.
I'm still here.
A smaller version of her.
Marnie, as always, thank you very much. I'll conclude this meeting of March 15th, 2021. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay.